Hi there, it's Jonathan here. This is 4100 and we're studying the history of Israel's kings. Today we're reading 1 Samuel 11 to 13:15. Saul is the newly minted king of Israel, and now it's time for him to earn the respect of his people. Men from the tribe of Benjamin were in trouble as they were under attack by the Ammonites. Their situation was pretty much hopeless. Saul heard about this and decided to do something. 11:6 tells us that the Spirit of God came powerfully upon him and he burned with anger. We can only imagine that this is righteous anger. This little narrative teaches us so much about God's heart and desire to be merciful to his people. It's clear that God doesn't agree with Israel having a human king, yet he still meets them in their choice and offers empowerment by his Spirit to the new king. 10:8 is an intriguing sentence. The author comments that there are 300,000 men from Israel and 30,000 men from Judah. Now, this distinction between the northern 10 tribes, who get called Israel, and the southern 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin, who are referred to as Judah, doesn't actually happen until many years later when the people of Israel split in two under the leadership of Solomon's dysfunctional sons. What this means is that this period of Israel's history was written at a later date, something to keep in mind as you read on. 11:11 gives us the details of another holy war. Slaughtering whole communities doesn't sound particularly Christian, but one must remember the time this was happening and the real challenges of fights to the death which were apparent in these societies. Holy war is a huge subject matter to think through. If you're interested in taking it further, do some reading in the book of Joshua. Verse 12 and following gives us an insight into Saul at his best. He is gracious and God-honouring. Such a shame this is so fleeting. Verse 15, the people make Saul king. They have been given what they think they need, a human king who can win military victories. Chapter 12 is Samuel's farewell speech. Notice the way in which history is retold orally. This is very important for the people of Israel. 12:9 says that the people forgot. This is a perennial problem for not only the ancient people of Israel, but every one of us. If only our memories served us better, we would constantly live cognizant of the goodness and faithfulness of God. It's just not how it works. The people forgot what God had done for them and the value of serving him only as their king. Samuel reminds the people in no uncertain terms in 12:12 that they said, "We want a king to rule over us just like the nations." Interestingly, even at this point, knowing how abhorrent this request was to God, Samuel intimates that if you obey the Lord your God even now, he may still bless you. That's the type of patient God our God is. Verse 14. Samuel tries to tell the people in 12:20 that the key to their success will be their obedience of Yahweh their God. If only they would throw away their useless idols and the allegiance to the pagan gods that came with them. Verse 24 couldn't be clearer. Fear God and serve him and you will be blessed. Do evil and you will perish. Chapter 13 introduces us to Saul's son, Jonathan. We're not given a lot of detail about how this all came about. It would seem that some time has passed since the previous chapter. The people of Israel are under attack by the Philistines and things are not looking good. God's people are afraid, with many hiding in caves. Later we're told that they only have 2 swords among them, which explains part of their fear. 13:11 tells the story of Saul's impatience and his quickness to take on the duties of the priest in calling on the Lord. This displeased Samuel and the Lord. 13:13 is huge. Saul's act of impatience and irreverence to the Lord basically costs him his kingship. Verse 14, Samuel says, "Your kingdom will not endure." And all of a sudden, God is looking for someone else to lead Israel. There are different times in the Bible where the actions of key characters in disobedience draws a punishment which seems quite extreme. I guess we can only understand this in light of the nature of the Old Testament as a whole. It's a story painted in very large brush strokes on a very large canvas, which teaches us important truths about real moments in history. The bottom line is, if our God is for us, who can be against us? But pity help you if our God is against you because of your disobedience. Our first king of Israel just scored an F on his report card, and we've only just begun in the history of the kings of Israel. Enjoy God's word.